Okay, here we go again. And hopefully this time, third time's a charm. Welcome to another episode of Interview Mondays. We're just waiting for some viewers to join, and then we'll get started. Hope you're having a fabulous Monday, and thank you for joining. We'll just wait a few minutes. We can get my guest on, and we'll get started. So today I have the pleasure of interviewing one very special guest. Just a couple minutes and we'll get started. So out here we had a rainy day, but the rain has gone and the sun is up. So what sort of day were you having, Bunny Gill? 15. Hope it wasn't as rainy as mine. So we're just waiting for my guest to join. I was having some connection problems, so I so apologize for that. And as soon as they join, we'll be ready to go. So just a few minutes, we'll get started. I just have to tell my guest to join. Were you having a nice day today? How was the weather out in Ottawa? Is it? Latvia? Was the weather good? I'm not sure why, but I can't seem to get the guest on. My apologies for the delay, but it is a great show today. This guest is really cool. They call Family Mediation Group, and you absolutely don't want to miss it. I so apologize for the delay in getting started. Hi, I'm not quite sure what's going on. It keeps telling me that we're telling your followers. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me okay? I just want to give me a thumbs up or something. Some days it's me, some days it's someone else. Today it was me, and that's why there was a delay getting started. But for some reason, I can't seem to get my guest on. It's telling me they can't join my live. And so I've invited them to join the live, and hopefully they'll get the message and be able to ask me to join. Oh my goodness. I don't know what is going on. I have no clue. Keeps telling me family mediation group is unable to join. So, not sure why they're unable to join. I am so sorry for the delay. Truly, truly sorry. For some reason, I can't see them asking to join. Hi, sorry. Hi, Darren. How are you? Hope you're having a fabulous day. Hi, Brittany. Hi, Rachel. For some reason, my guest can't seem to join today, and we're having some difficulty. And I'm so, so sorry, but I'm going to try one more time and see if they can join. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. There we go. I see family mediation group. There we go. Oh my goodness. Now we just get started. Give me a few minutes. Oh my. For some reason, it's just not allowing me to.
There
Oh,
we
there you are. Oh my
Hi.
goodness.
We made it. How are you?
I'm good. So I am
Don't you love
very,
technology?
oh, it's
Yes,
fabulous when it works, right?
yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and here I am getting flustered because I'm like, oh my God, I do this every week. I know how to do this. Laura, you're as amazing as ever.
Thank you.
So for all of you watching, I normally don't really introduce, but I must say that I've known Laura for, I feel like it's forever. Like we met way back when in New York, and um, she looks as fabulous as she did way back when in New York. So I am so pleased that you came on. Thank you so much.
A pleasure, pleasure always. And I feel the same. I feel like I know you forever. I watch your videos and I watch your social media with great delight. It's been so informative to me as well, and to whomever is watching it. So it's great to have you continuing, in my ongoing network.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's get started. Introduce yourself and your Instagram handle.
Oh, it's a family mediation group. So there's underscore in between the three words, family underscore mediation underscore group. So that's our IG underscore handle handle.
Handle. Yes. And so tell us a bit about your business and how long have you been in business and where are you located?
Okay, so well, right now we're located online, just like the whole world. So we've been online for during the pandemic, but generally we have a location in Durham and we have a location in Toronto. So the work that we do is family mediation. So we work with couples and families and parents who are going through a separation or divorce. And we're helping them come to an agreement that hopefully keeps them out of court.
Yeah, that's the most important, right? Keeps them out of court because I mean
Yes.
their bills can just keep climbing up pretty fast. So
Yes.
so give us some insight about, I know you're brilliant at this. I mean, I had the opportunity to really get to work with you when we were actually doing the course and thereafter. So I know you're very good at this stuff. So give us a little bit of insight as to how you work and how your business operates.
Okay, sure, would love to. So we developed actually, you know, I learned so when we met at York doing the family mediation program, I learned a lot about mediation, but I also learned about what not to do in mediation, so
Mhm.
or what path I should not be taking. So one of the paths that we've created actually, instead of having one mediator, we've created what's called a co-mediation model. So we always have two mediators at a table. And we found that absolutely amazing because as opposed to one person being in the, not for lack of better words, in the middle of two
Mhm.
parents or a couple, now we balance the table with two mediators with generally with two different skill sets. So my background is in mental health. Also a master's of laws. And my co-mediator usually is, not usually, pretty much for sure, is a family lawyer. So we created this model where we provide a lot of information to the families as they navigate the experience of separation, and
Mhm.
also make sure that we manage whatever comes up in terms of either a legal concept or an emotional concept, just because of the different backgrounds and the skill sets that we bring at the table. So I think that's what I always found it a little interesting to be one mediator. Even when I started, I found that I needed someone else. I needed
Mhm.
another voice sometimes at the table. We needed a professional opinion about certain things. So I said to myself, why not have the professional already
Mhm.
integrated in this mediation process, right? And I can share a little bit more about what mediation is, but essentially what we created is a co-mediation. So now we have the two mediators with two different skill sets, trying to help the family navigate it through the next chapter.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, perhaps before we move forward, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop it either in the comments or in the little question icon below. But just tell everybody what is mediation, right? So that they understand. Yeah, let's go into that a bit.
Okay, so mediation. So what we specialize in is family mediation. So pretty much the same thing as others would call it divorce mediation or separation mediation. So we focus on helping families come to an agreement. Usually, the final product is a separation agreement. So that's what they're working towards in mediation. So when a family separates, when a couple separates, they do need some information, and they also need some support in terms of the next chapter and how to get to the separation agreement. So usually if there's children, then we talk about children, and we talk about, anything that's related to children, a parenting time, child support, things like that. And if there is any property, like a home, or more than, real estate property, like assets and debts, how do we divide those? So that's what really that's what we're doing. We're helping families get to that separation agreement that outlines essentially their agreements around child support, if there's children, spousal support, if there is any spousal support entitlement, and property division, if there is any property to divide, and assets and debts. Essentially, it keeps families out of court, right? So even if they go to court, or if they do what's called a lawyer-led negotiation to get to a separation agreement, essentially that's their final product. The final product is a separation agreement. It's a huge difference when we talk about getting to the separation agreement through mediation, where both parents or the couple collaborates on, co-authors essentially on that agreement. So the terms of the agreement, they talk about it, they negotiate, they relay what's fair to them, to their sense of fairness, moving into the post-separation relationship, co-parenting sometimes, as opposed to someone imposing on you or on them, right? So if you are going into a court or a lawyer-led negotiation, there's a lot less room for creativity. The law is the law, it's pretty black and white, and it applies to everyone the same, even though practically it doesn't apply to everyone the same, right? It doesn't fit everyone the same. So that's what essentially mediation is doing, is trying to, yes, you do get the legal information, however you also have the ability to create your own options that are practical for your family and in the contract, and hopefully a contract that would be mutually satisfying for both sides. I can talk at length, as you can tell, about this. Next time we're going to reserve 3 hours for just this question.
Just one topic. That's absolutely correct. You know what? It's so, I want to thank you for coming on, because it's so important, because I think people have this misconception that, if they go to court, they're going to get that ultimate outcome. And, being a mediator myself, but in a different field, as in labor relations, I can tell you one thing, and working quite vastly in that labor relations world, having control over the process, I mean, whatever kind of control you want to call it, but having some say in that process makes a big difference, right?
Absolutely.
Because, it's not like brought down on you, and then you have to kind of, whether you think it's fair or not, at least you're coming to some sort of mediated resolution where you feel you've had control of, that outcome, right? So I know you deal with a lot of, with kids, and kids are involved in some situations, not all. And, tell us about how you navigate through those sort of situations. I know it's a little dicey. It could be a little dicey.
Yes, it is, and it is very dicey. So that's why the process of mediation focuses, regardless of where you're going, court or mediation, it is a child-focused process. So we have to make sure that the children's needs are met, regardless, and then the parents' needs are always secondary, unfortunately, when they move forward. So the children's needs, the safety, their, whatever their sources and supports are needed as we move through the divorce and separation. We take a lot of time in the mediation to understand what are some of those needs, what are the stages of the children in terms of, stages of development, what are, their ages, their needs, abilities or disabilities, all of that stuff, all of these come into play when we create a parenting plan, right? So as opposed to, a parenting plan for obviously a toddler is going to be very different than a parenting plan for a teenager, right? So we do take the time to make sure we understand from both parents collectively what the child or the children need. Also, we make sure that we understand from each parent individually, right? Because mediation does allow for the voice, not just collectively now for the parents to share what they feel about their children's future and what they need and what the children need, but also for the parent, him or herself, to say, what they really feel outside of their co-parent that the child needs. And this way we create a parenting plan that addresses the concerns of the parents, but also allows for the child to have an optimal functionality during their post-separation adjustment period, right, with both parents. So there, it is dicey. We have families who are very aligned in terms of the values, belief system, and how they want to continue to raise their children. And, honestly, we have more families that way than the other way. And then we have families where the children's needs are not so clear to one or both of them. And at that point, what I love about mediation is that it allows to integrate a voice of the child professional, for example. So you can always integrate a child consultant. You can integrate, a parenting coordinator, a clinical worker, social worker, right, who may be able to address, to gather the children's needs and then provide some form of, informal or formal recommendations as to what is the best plan of action here. Most parents really who enter into the mediation, they do have a pretty good, solid idea of what their children need. But certainly, when some don't, then we have that ability to introduce a professional, right? So it's not even just about the children. Sometimes you can put the ability to introduce a professional or an expert view in the process is absolutely a huge advantage, because it does provide that educational lens for the parents in order to hopefully alleviate some of the concerns and put a plan into place that is much more suitable and appropriate, rather than a stranger imposing what parenting plan to go on the children or for the children. We hear judges all the time and lawyers, and neither of this profession, lawyer and judge, they're not trained in parenting children. They're not trained in social work. They don't have background in mental health, all that stuff. So really, truly, in the end, they will rely on an opinion from a social worker or from a parenting coordinator, whatever, So it's a case by case, but certainly it does have a lot more. It does have a lot more options. In the mediation, you have more options to make sure that you sort of integrate this lenses, this educational lenses, and also supports in place, right? If a child needs a particular support, then we talk about it and how do we put the supports in place post separation, right? Because once you have an agreement, that's great, we got to an agreement, but how do we make sure that the agreement is going to stand the test of time and it's going to be followed through and all of that stuff, right? So that's a different chapter that we try to make sure that we have those supports in place, right? If there is a therapist that needs to be involved, if there is whatever the case may be, we make sure it's addressed in the mediation so we can place it in the agreement.
So having said that, I know you started to branch on some of the pros and cons. So some of the positive, actually more, let's just talk about the positives of the mediation versus the cold process, because I really don't see cons, and you know what I mean? So, yeah. There is. Yes, so there's lots of positive, and I have I think I have so many resources and things together about that. There's so when we look at both of them, so divorce mediation or litigation, usually the cost is not even comparable, right? So you are looking at a cost that if you're going to get to an agreement, generally what we see, it's about maybe under 3,000 or 4,000, sometimes 5, for both parents to get to the separation agreement together, as opposed to our stats Canada actually do show that it is about 24,000 to 50,000 per person if you are entering litigation, and that's without the trial, and that's not even going to the trial. If a family ends up into trial, you are looking at a very, very different animal in terms of costs. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to get to trial. Now, in time is, and I love this. This is my favorite, because life is short and time is of the essence. If someone wants to start their new chapter or their healing process, something that it will disrupt
the negativity that has been, you know, in the family relationship before separation, then really in the mediation, you can actually get to an agreement. You're talking a matter of weeks, as opposed to if you are going to court or you're going through litigation, the timeline is about 2 years. So you're looking at a huge amount of sleepless nights comparison. So that it's not just 2-3 weeks that you can get to an agreement, and it's not just 2 years, but you are looking at being entrenched into a process that you every single day, every single week, you lose control of. You have less and less control because anger takes over, frustration takes over, and then the system takes over, unfortunately, if you get caught into the system in the litigation. Now, you touched upon decision making. Decision making is absolutely paramount. If you have the decision making that you and your co-parent have in mediation is pretty much erased in terms of litigation, right? A judge, a stranger, is going to make a decision on your behalf, and you know, happy or not, you're going to have to live with it. That's just the reality of it. Nobody's going to be happy. Nobody is ever happy, right? When it comes to a decision that's being imposed on them. Now, the final decision, you always have control over the final decision, as opposed to court, right? So in the mediation, you have control. We've had families even today, this morning. We have a mediation, and really truly we generate options, right? We hear the concerns, we generate options, and sometimes the options just don't fit, right? Which is okay. We are going to go back to the drawing board and generate more options. Well, you do not have that ability in litigation, right? In the litigation, you cannot. You may generate options, but you do not have the ability to have the final say on, you know what, let's go back to the drawing board. I don't really like this option. Can we tweak this a little bit more? Can we, you know, you don't have the time, you don't have the ability, and you don't have the resources. In the court, you do not have those type of resources to allow the parents to sit with something and then come back to it and tweak a little bit more, right? You just that's not that type of system, right? So those are some of the benefits, and I think, I mean, the downfall. In the same time, mediation is not for everyone, right? I mean, you have to be at the very least aligned with the fact that you want to resolve your issues outside of court. So you want to, at the very least, align with that. You know, of course, you're going to have some people out there who are not going to be okay, which is, you know, then that's why the court is there. But the court should not be the default, right? We've always made clear that the court cannot be the default, and unfortunately, the system, how it is designed right now, it almost feels that courts should be the first resort, whereas research and everything is showing, and it's been demonstrating, you know, years after years, articles after articles, that that court should be the last resort, right? So we should do a little bit of a better job, at the very least, trying to come to an agreement outside of the court.
Yeah, I think people give up that right because they think they're going to get something better, and I don't think they understand the process. So thank you for being, you know, a champion of this process. I'm a true believer of it. In any industry, I'm a true believer of. So let's say someone was interested. What's your process from start to finish if someone was interested in your services?
So we always have to start with an intake. And usually, so if someone says, you know, we're ready to start mediation, or would like to contemplate mediation, we have to start with an intake, an individual intake. We have to do that because of a couple of reasons. We first gather some information from them individually, but also we're mandated to conduct what's called a screening for domestic violence and power imbalances, just to make sure that, you know, the parent's voice, or the person in that particular couple's voice, is at the table. They're safe. No one is entering, you know, this process by way of bullying, being bullied, or coercion, or things like that. So that's important to have it individually. So certainly our protocol is always individually before we meet together, just to understand what is the dynamic. that intake, individual intake, tells us a lot, because it may actually tell us that mediation is not appropriate, right? In some rare cases, we have to call it and we say mediation is not appropriate. In most cases, mediation is appropriate, but where there's a power imbalance, then the intake has allowed us the opportunity to understand where is the power imbalance and how to structure the mediation in a way that manages that power imbalance, right? So if someone, for example, is not so sophisticated with numbers, right? We have to make sure that when we know, first of all, I want to say that power imbalance is not necessarily negative. It's not a negative thing. It just has to be managed appropriately. So, for example, if someone has if someone is more mathically sophisticated with numbers and another one less sophisticated with numbers, we have to make sure that in mediation we address these components. We have to make sure that when we talk about numbers, we make sure that we speak in both languages, right? So yes, English is the language, but we speak in both languages to address some of the elements that the person more sophisticated understands already, and then the less sophisticated to make sure he or she understands at the same level. So we have to make sure we bring them at the same level. So the intake gives us a lot of information that helps us then move into the mediation. So after the intakes are finished, we do a mediation session. Before the mediation session, however, we sort of create a roadmap for the family of documents that they have to put together, some points that they maybe want to prep before we meet together. Just we maximize that time together. And when we are together, I have to tell you, lots of families have a pretty solid agreement sometimes of what they're about to agree to. So, it just takes us make sure that they understand, they understand what they're, going into, and that we also provide the information on the pieces that they haven't thought of yet, because rightfully so, most families are going through separation for the first time, right? So when they see us, so we have to make sure that everybody understands sort of the whole process and how they make. So we provide information, we generate a bunch of options in the mediation, and then we move to either another mediation session or we move to drafting their agreement. So after we draft their agreement, we meet one more time to review the agreement, make sure everybody is is on the same page, understands it's reflective of their agreements, and then that would be the end of it, right? They can still take it for a review for what's called an independent legal advice at the end, and we share this with families all the time. That's not the same thing as retaining a lawyer for a legal battle. That is a specific service for that will provide advice on the agreement, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not going to be the first time they hear that information. We provide this information during the mediation. However, we cannot provide legal advice. So during the mediation, we provide legal information, which it's different than legal advice. Legal information is going to be information that's general information. And they can do whatever they want with that information. They can say, thank you so much for the information. However, this other model applies to us, and that's fine. Legal advice, and we provide it to both of them. So we work as part of both of their team, right? So we work with a couple as part of both of their team. As opposed to legal advice can only be one-on-one. So you can only have legal advice. Only one person has legal advice from their lawyer, the other person from their respective lawyer, and that's separate. And that lawyer will focus on more or less, for lack of better words, for advocating for the best deal that you can get, regardless of everybody else in the family, regardless of the family unit moving forward, right? So it's a different type of lens that they apply to reading the agreement with you. At that point, families can say, to the lawyer, thanks for the advice. However, I'm happy with my agreement, or they can come back to mediation and propose a few changes if they feel they need to make some changes. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what you're looking at. You're looking at the intakes, looking at a mediation in the middle or two sessions, and then you look at a review of the agreement.
So the next question I want to ask you, but I think you've already kind of touched on it, which was what's the average time frame? And I think you already touched on it earlier when you said about approximately as quick as 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, we have families who finish in about 2-3 weeks for sure. Yeah.
So how do people people get in touch with you then if they want to use your services, you know?
Oh, they can go to the handle, so the IG, the Family Mediation Group, or they can go to familymediationgroup.ca. There's a website that we have as well. Or if they want direct email, my email is fmg laura@gmail.com. So F as in Frank, M as in Mary, G as in grand, Laura at gmail.com. As in gloomy, yes. Yeah, they can connect however they want, the phone number, whatever it's easy. But certainly, you know, it's up to them. Everybody can ask questions without feeling that they are committing to something. I think it's important to call around a couple of mediators and do your research before you actually move into mediation with someone, and ask questions that are important to your family, right? Ask questions such as, where are you, you know, what's the time average, what do I get at the end, right? What kind of contract do I get at the end, and how much is the cost, and, you know, what's the process, right? So I think it's important to find out, for whomever is looking for mediation, from a couple of mediators at least, to fit their process to their needs.
So let me ask you one question. I know I'm kind of like taking you out because we already started late, so I apologize for asking you
No,
questions. Yeah, so let me just ask, if you have like a party, but one party is it's a difficult divorce, one party is very, you know, difficult, let's just say, use the word difficult. How do you work with people like that? If somebody came to you and said, you know, I need to get some sort of separation agreement, would that be something you would take on, or? Yes,
we work with challenging and difficult personalities all the time. I'm one of them, so thank God I don't have to work with myself. But it is important. Even with challenging and difficult personalities, it is important. That's why the intake is very important, because it does allow us to understand what are some of the challenges, what are some of the difficulties. So, for example, if someone is triggering to the other person, or there has been domestic violence, or there has been, other type of domestic abuse in the relationship, well, those don't disentitle someone to mediation. Those are elements and factors that can be worked on during the mediation. So sometimes we have to structure the mediation, for example, when we're in person, or right now when we're online, we have to structure the mediation where the two parties cannot see each other, right? So we're in different spaces. If we are in an office, they're in different offices. Sometimes they have to stagger their entry and their leaving. Sometimes they cannot be in the same building at the same time. So all of this stuff can still be worked with. All of these factors can be integrated into the process, because the reality is that if there has been any domestic violence, if there has been any abuse, we've had families who would find the court process and the steps of the process re-victimizing of their experience. So it's a very delicate dance. However, they need to get this done. They need to get this done as safely as possible. So, and this in mediation is the mediation is the only process that screens for domestic violence and power imbalances, right? The court doesn't, and lawyers don't, right? So in mediation, you would be the only person or the only professional who would actually learn about these factors and have the opportunity to design the process to keep safe, to keep the parties safe, minimize the risk of harm, and also put a plan in place, right? That it's not going to continue this cycle of abuse, right? So there is, and that's only one way that it can be done. Another way that can be done is they can bring lawyers at the table, right? So we have families who they feel like their voices, they need a lot more support, so they bring their lawyers at the table. We have families who in the same time as the mediation, they have to work with an additional professional, right? They have to work with either a therapist, or they have to work with a counselor, or whatever the case may be, to work on whatever dynamic there, so they can sort of deal with the other components in the mediation. So yes, in long-winded way, the answer is absolutely yes. So you can work with difficult personalities. It's just you have to find the appropriate ways and mechanisms to put in place to minimize the risk of harm, right? That's really what the objective is. Then you can work with them. Yeah.
Perfect. I know we're about to wrap up, and before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you if there was anything. I know we could probably talk forever on this topic. I think it's a fabulous topic. I'm so glad you agreed to come on and do this for me. But let me know if there's anything that that you'd like to share that I've missed and I haven't asked you about your business, and so that we can showcase what you do, all the fabulous stuff you do,
all the fabulous things.
In the best way.
Well, you know what? If some we do have some videos on YouTube. So if families have, or couples or whomever, they have some questions about some of the process or some differences in between certain concepts, they can go to it's on YouTube. It's called Love, Divorce, and Everything in Between. That's our handle. So there's a few videos out there that explain in detail, so whether you go to mediation or lawyer-led negotiation or whatever the case may be, I think they're informative. They prep, because part of moving forward is also information, right? So gathering that information is important, and making sure that you have appropriate information moving forward, right? So I think the more we can share, the better it is. They can find information there. They can find information. I wanted to actually go back to one thing that you said. We hear it quite a few times when families say, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to get everything I want, or whatever the case may be, right? So that is so far, and that's where, unfortunately, we see the way that the system is designed to think that you really need to go to court in order to get everything you want. So first of all, we share with families all the time, court is not a buffet, right? So it's not they're putting a buffet of options there, and then you go and you pick, I'll have the child support, but I'll leave the spousal support, but property division, I'm going to give it to my son. It doesn't work that way. So court is a very black and white lens. It's a system. It's not meant to parent the children. It is written rules of law. And it doesn't really care about your emotional attachment or your sense of fairness as a family moving forward into your separation. So that is one. Second, no lawyer or mediator or anybody can guarantee you, or judge well, they can order it, but no lawyer can guarantee you an outcome. So if somebody's going to tell you, no, we're going to take her for everything she's got, we're going to do this for everything, that type of path, they omit to say at what cost, right? So sometimes, yes, we see families who get whatever they think they are entitled to, but nobody seems to mention how much they paid to get there, right? So there is a blog that I wrote a while ago, and it's still very relevant in my mind, because there was a woman, a mother, who called 3 years after they engaged in a litigation. They each spent about $85,000 each, and they didn't even get to a separation agreement yet. So they have arrived to absolute despair in terms of, and ruin, financial, emotional, everything. They finally said, enough with this process. And they came into the mediation. They were so tired. It's very sad that they came to mediation at that stage, already late, right? With nothing to show for. So they finished the mediation, I think, in 2 weeks, not even, because they already knew what they were about to agree. And they had an agreement in place in really, 15, 16 days. Mm-hmm. And this is a rare case, but under 3,000, because they already knew, they're already tired, they already, it's not so see in those moments I think what's the most important thing for families is to think that it's not fair to the children, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not fair
Mm-hmm.
because we oftentimes say, you know, nobody can guarantee at what cost you're going to get what. And truthfully, unless we're talking about, you know, somebody who, you know, is gambling the family's, you know, monies away, truthfully, the money is going to trickle down to your children, right? So if you can find a way, no matter how much you dislike your ex, to keep that money into the family, then keep that money into the family. You know, I mean, put it in a trust account for the
Absolutely.
kids. You do something else with it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of like my that you can tell that that's my passion is, you know, don't give it to strangers. If you worked hard for your
Yeah,
money, kind of
absolutely.
keep it to yourself because there are ways to keep it to yourself, right?
Yeah, and the money is one part of it, but the pure exhaustion is the other part that I don't think you
Huge.
can actually put a number on it. Like, I don't think you can put a dollar value on that piece, right? I mean, a lot of times things are stressful enough, and difficult enough and hard enough to deal with. And as you said, when we started, life is short, right? So sometimes
Yes.
I think people have to get those blinders off. So thank you so much for taking the time. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope you'll agree to do this again because I think this is a great topic for people to, you know, consider, turn their minds to when they're going through some difficult times. And yes, thank you so much. And for all of you watching, thank you for spending some time with us. We really appreciate it. We apologize. I apologize for the technical difficulties today, but and for all of you watching, my name is Jacqueline Watson. I'm a realtor with Sutton Group Tower. And yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you
Until
so
next
much.
time. Thank you,
This was
Laura.
wonderful. Thanks.
Yes, good to see you. Take care.
You too. Bye.